People like you don't belong here. The words hit like a slap, slicing through the humid noon air. A security guard stood firm at the iron gates, palm out as if pushing Alicia Monroe back into the world she came from. She didn't move. Her hoodie hood shadowed her face from the sun, one hand steady on the handle of her carry-on. "This is my property," she said quietly. The guard barked a short laugh. "Sure it is. Turn around. You're not getting in." The black SUV's engine ticked as it cooled behind her. Beyond the gates, the sweeping drive curved through manicured lawns toward a mansion she'd built from the ground up. Yet here she was, locked out like an intruder. Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you believe in dignity and justice, hit like and subscribe. These stories spark change. And we're glad you're here. Now back to Alicia. She had returned from a 14-hour flight, dressed in faded jeans and sneakers. No entourage, no warning. She wanted to see the estate as it truly was when the staff didn't know she was watching. But this? The second guard stepped forward, arms crossed, voice hard. "Leave now or we call the police." Alicia exhaled slowly. She remembered being 16, turned away from a hotel lobby in Charlotte because she didn't look like a guest. She remembered sleeping in her car that night. And now, 20 years and 12 acquisitions later, the same tone, the same assumption, had found her at her own front gate. "Did you even check my name?" she asked evenly. The guard's jaw tightened. "Doesn't matter. We know everyone who lives here. You're not one of them." Alicia glanced at the ornate crest welded into the gates, her family crest. A white pickup truck rolled up behind her, a neighbor craning his neck to see what was happening. One guard waved him through without even asking for ID. "You see the difference, don't you?" Alicia said quietly. "What?" the guard snapped. "You didn't ask him for a thing," she replied. "Because we know him," the guard said flatly. "Now step aside." Alicia's grip on her suitcase tightened. "I'm not moving." The second guard pulled out a radio. "Control, we've got a trespasser at the main gate," he said, eyes locked on hers. "Requesting backup." Somewhere beyond the fence, a groundskeeper paused, phone raised, recording. The air thickened, charged. "Ma'am," the taller guard barked. "You have 10 seconds to leave." Alicia stood her ground. Calm. Anchored. A black sedan screeched to a stop just outside the gates. The man who climbed out wore a tailored navy suit and an expression carved from stone. Marcus Hale, the estate's property manager, strode forward like he owned the place. "What's the problem here?" His voice was clipped, impatient. The taller guard stepped aside, almost relieved. "She's trying to get in, sir. Claims she lives here." Marcus's gaze swept over Alicia from head to toe. Hoodie, sneakers, no makeup, and dismissed her in an instant. "And you believed her?" he said to the guard, loud enough for Alicia to hear. "I didn't." "Then why is she still standing here?" Marcus cut in. He turned his full attention on Alicia, eyes cold. "Ma'am, you're trespassing on private property. You need to leave immediately." Alicia tilted her head, voice low. "Have you checked the system?" Marcus stepped closer, invading her space. "I don't need to check anything. I know who belongs here. And you—" He gestured at her clothes, her suitcase. "Do not." The groundskeeper at the edge of the lawn shifted uncomfortably, his phone still raised. Alicia caught the red recording light. "I'm asking you one last time," Marcus said. "Turn around, or I'll call the sheriff." Alicia didn't move. "Call him," she said. The guards exchanged glances. Marcus's jaw tightened. "Seize her bag." "What?" one of the guards muttered, but Marcus's glare was enough. The taller guard reached for Alicia's suitcase. She didn't resist when he yanked it from her hand, the wheels scraping across the pavement. "Open it," Marcus ordered. Alicia's breath came slow, steady. She felt the burn in her chest, the same burn she'd carried since she was a teenager. The burn of being told she didn't belong. "Don't," she said quietly. The guard hesitated, hand on the zipper. "Do it," Marcus snapped. Before he could move, Alicia pulled out her phone. She dialed with one hand, the screen lighting up. "Carla," she said when the call connected, her voice suddenly steel. "Activate Protocol 7. Full access reset. Now." "Yes, Ms. Monroe," came the crisp reply. Marcus frowned. "Who do you think you're calling?" A soft mechanical hum filled the air. The iron gates shuddered, then began to slide open on their own. The estate security system beeped, screens inside the guardhouse flashing a single name. "Alicia Monroe, owner. Override access granted." The guards froze. Alicia stepped forward, her voice level but cutting. "You wanted proof? There it is." Marcus's face drained of color. This must be a mistake." "No," Alicia said, her gaze locking on his. "The mistake is standing in front of me." Behind her, the groundskeeper lowered his phone, lips parted. "She owns this place," he whispered to himself. Marcus tried to recover, voice shaking. "Ms. Monroe, we were just following protocol." "Protocol," Alicia repeated. She stepped closer, the gates fully open now, her presence filling the space. "You humiliated me at my own front gate. You ordered my belongings seized. You called me a trespasser in the home I built." Marcus opened his mouth, but no words came out. Alicia turned slightly, speaking into her phone. "Carla, lock out Hale Management and the entire gate security team from all systems. Effective immediately." "Yes, ma'am," Carla replied. The guards' access badges buzzed red simultaneously. The hum of power shifted. You can't do this," Marcus stammered. "I already did." Alicia took her suitcase back from the stunned guard, then faced the entire group. "You have 10 minutes to clear this property. Every second you spend arguing is another second you'll regret later." The groundskeeper looked around, unsure. Alicia met his eyes, softening slightly. "You can stay," she said. "This isn't about you." Marcus stepped back, desperation creeping in. "Ms. Monroe, please, I was only trying to protect." Alicia raised a hand. The room, the road, the world seemed to still. "You weren't protecting anyone. You were protecting your prejudice." The groundskeeper's phone trembled in his hand as he whispered to the camera. "She just fired them all. Right here at the gate." Alicia turned and walked through the gates without another word, the estate swallowing her silhouette. Behind her, the once powerful staff stood paralyzed, the reality settling in. The woman they tried to erase was the only reason they'd ever belonged there at all. Alicia's footsteps echoed up the stone drive like a countdown. The mansion rose before her, gleaming glass and white stone catching the last light of the afternoon. Behind her, the sound of panicked whispers and shuffling feet filled the air. "Ms. Monroe." Marcus's voice cracked as he hurried to catch up. "Please, can we talk about this? Just a warning." Alicia didn't turn. "You've had years of warnings," she said. She reached the grand double doors. They opened automatically at her approach, the security system recognizing her face and voice. Inside, the marble-floored foyer was empty, too quiet, until the estate's operations director, Janice Bell, emerged from a side hall, tablet in hand. "Ms. Monroe," Janice said, her voice steady but her eyes darting nervously toward Marcus and the guards now hovering at the threshold. "Carla briefed me. The system lockout is complete. Do you want me to initiate full terminations?" "Yes," Alicia replied without hesitation. Marcus stepped forward, desperation pouring off him. "Please, you don't understand." Alicia turned to face him at last. "No, you don't understand. This isn't about one gate. This is about every assumption you've made about who deserves to be here. And it ends today." Janice's tablet chimed softly as she tapped through the commands. "All personnel removed from payroll. Access badges permanently disabled. HR notifications sent." The guards' phones buzzed in their pockets. Marcus's tablet blinked red and shut off completely. This is insane," one of the guards muttered. "No," Alicia said calmly. "It's accountability." She stepped closer to Marcus, her voice low enough that only he could hear. "You called me a trespasser in my own home. You humiliated me in front of strangers. And you didn't even bother to check my name. Marcus swallowed hard, sweat glistening at his temple. I was trying to keep the estate secure. Alicia's gaze was unflinching. You kept it small. You kept it ignorant. That's not security. That's fear. The groundskeeper had followed at a distance, his phone still recording. Other staff members, housekeepers, gardeners, peeked from doorways, murmuring as the scene unfolded. "Clear the property," Alicia said, her voice carrying across the vast foyer. "You have 5 minutes." No one moved at first. Then Janice repeated it. 5 minutes. The guards shuffled toward the exit, their shoulders sagging. Marcus lingered, his pride keeping him rooted in place until Alicia's eyes met his one final time. "You mistook my silence for submission," she said softly. "That was your last mistake." Marcus's face drained of what little color remained. He turned and walked out, the heavy doors closing behind him with a final, echoing thud. Alicia exhaled slowly, the anger that had carried her through the gate and into the house finally loosening its grip. She looked at Janice. Rebuild the team. Different hiring practices. Effective immediately. "Yes, Ms. Monroe," Janice said, already taking notes. The groundskeeper lowered his phone. I'm sorry," he said quietly. "I should have said something earlier." Alicia shook her head. "You did the right thing. You witnessed it. That matters." He hesitated. "Do you want me to delete the video?" Alicia's lips curved into a small, resolute smile. "No. Let them see what accountability looks like." She turned back to the doors, the estate now silent except for the distant hum of departing cars. She paused, then looked over her shoulder one last time. "I don't need your validation to walk into my own home," she said, her voice carrying like a verdict. "But you will never walk through these gates again." The line dropped into the stillness like a stone into water, rippling outward. Staff who had been silent nodded in quiet agreement. Janice stood taller. The groundskeeper whispered, "Damn." Under his breath, Alicia stepped deeper into the mansion, the light from the soaring windows casting her shadow long and unshaken. For the first time since landing that morning, she felt the quiet of home. And for the first time, everyone else understood who truly belonged there. By nightfall, the video had already spread. The groundskeeper hadn't planned for it to go viral. He'd posted the 3-minute clip quietly, captioned simply, "She owns the house. Watch what happens when they try to erase her." But the internet took care of the rest. On TikTok, it hit 500,000 views in under 2 hours. Twitter hashtags exploded. #OwnYourGate, #Alicia Monroe, #Justice at the Gate. Comments poured in from people who had seen and lived the same thing. "Imagine being called a trespasser at your own home," one tweet read. "She handled it with more grace than I ever could." In a CNN studio, anchors played the clip on loop. A still frame of Alicia at the gates, hoodie shadowing her face but her posture unshaken, became the image of the night. "She never raised her voice," a panelist said. "That's real power." Inside the mansion, Alicia sat at the head of a long oak table, a stack of HR files in front of her. Janice moved briskly around the room, briefing the interim security team. Diverse, competent, vetted by corporate HR. "They start tonight," Janice said. "No one enters or exits without proper clearance. And every name is verified, no exceptions." Alicia nodded. "This isn't just about security," she said. "It's about respect." Her phone buzzed. Carla's voice came through the speaker. "We've received over 1,200 job applications since the video went live. People want to work for you." Alicia allowed a small smile. "Then we'll build a team that understands dignity isn't optional." She glanced toward the foyer, where the groundskeeper waited awkwardly. "You can come in," she called. He stepped forward, hat in hand. I just wanted to say thank you," he said, "for letting the video stay up. People need to see this." "They do," Alicia agreed. She leaned forward. "But you also need to know you were the only one who tried to hold a mirror up today. That matters. If you're willing, I'd like you to stay on the team." With a promotion. His eyes widened. Yes, absolutely. Good, Alicia said softly. You'll help set the tone for everyone who walks through those gates. As he left, Alicia stood and walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows. Beyond the glass, the gates stood open now, but the estate felt protected in a way it hadn't that morning. The phone buzzed again. Carla. Media requests are coming in. Do you want to make a statement? Alicia thought for a moment, then shook her head. No. The clip says enough. Carla hesitated. But people will want your words. They already have them, Alicia replied. On camera at the gates. I don't need your validation to walk into my own home. That's the only statement I'll make. She ended the call and exhaled. Outside, the sun dipped low, casting the estate in golden light. Inside, the house was alive again. Staff moving with purpose. New hires arriving. Every footstep echoing a change that would last. Alicia's reflection stared back at her in the glass, calm, composed, unshaken. Somewhere in the distance, a news anchor closed the segment with a single line. Tonight, Alicia Monroe reminds us all that dignity isn't granted, it's owned. And for the first time that day, Alicia allowed herself to smile. 3 days later, a black envelope arrived at the old security office. It wasn't addressed to anyone in particular, just a bold silver stamp across the front. Return to sender. Inside were the shredded access badges of Marcus and his team, neatly taped back together, then sliced through once more with surgical precision. Attached was a card. 6 words. You never had the key. Marcus read it from the cheap rental apartment where he now lived. His inbox flooded with rejections. His LinkedIn bio, once smug and overstuffed, had been reduced to a single line, seeking new opportunities. He didn't just lose a job. He lost the illusion of control. But Alicia had moved on. Across the estate, energy pulsed again. New staff trained in silent coordination. A community liaison program was launched. Young interns, mostly black, brown, and overlooked, were offered paid residencies in estate management. Janice stood in the atrium with a tablet in hand. We've scheduled 4 high school tours next month. Urban schools, mostly. They'll learn about architecture, operations, ownership. Good, Alicia said. Let them see what power looks like when it protects, not excludes. Janice glanced up. And the TED Talk? Alicia raised a brow. Already confirmed? Sold out in 12 minutes. Alicia allowed herself a chuckle. Then I guess I should start writing. Outside, a teenage girl approached the gates. Tight curls bouncing, camera bags slung over her shoulder. The new guard, Jermaine, leaned down and smiled. You must be Zoe? She nodded. I got picked for the mentorship. I still can't believe it. Jermaine scanned her badge, then pointed to the etched crest above the gate. Remember that, he said. That's hers. You're walking into history. Zoe stepped through the gates, her sneakers landing where Alicia once stood. Unwelcome. Now, her presence meant progress. Inside, Alicia prepared her notes. Not a speech, not a PR stunt. Just truth. She flipped through photos, her standing alone at the gate, the faces of every new hire, the digital map of community impact. The TED Talk would be titled, Not Permission, Presence. She wrote the first line aloud, testing its weight. I was told I didn't belong, so I built the space myself. Later that night, Zoe wandered the estate's north gardens, camera in hand. She paused at a small bronze plaque mounted near the reflecting pool. It read, For every girl told she's too loud, too brown, too bold, keep walking. The gates were never theirs to guard. A.M. She snapped a photo and whispered, She really said that? Jermaine, watering a nearby hedge, nodded. She lived it. And somewhere in the mansion, Alicia sat beneath a soft lamp, reviewing resumes by hand, because nothing automated should ever decide who belongs. She circled a name, smiled. Another gate opened. A week later, Alicia stepped onto the stage of the packed TED auditorium. Cameras clicked like rain as the audience rose to their feet. She didn't wave, didn't bask. She simply waited for the room to quiet. Thank you, she said. her voice carrying like a steady drumbeat. I stand here because someone once told me I didn't belong in my own home. That moment was not unique. And that's the problem. She let the silence stretch. Rows of faces leaned in. I was 16 the first time it happened, she continued. A hotel clerk told me to wait outside while other guests checked in. 20 years later, it happened again at my own estate. What changed? Not enough. She paused, scanning the crowd. But I've learned something. Systemic problems don't solve themselves. We do that. Together. The screen behind her lit up with a photo of the estate gates. Open, sunlight streaming through. This isn't about one gate, Alicia said. It's about who gets to hold the keys in every industry, every boardroom, every front desk in the world. It's about breaking the cycle that lets bias masquerade as protocol. Applause rippled, then roared. Alicia raised her hand gently. And this is how we begin. Opportunity. Real, intentional opportunity. My estate now hosts 40 interns a year, paid, mentored, and trusted. We've partnered with community colleges to open doors in property management, architecture, finance, fields where gatekeeping is literally and figuratively built into the job. She clicked the remote. Photos filled the screen. Young women in hard hats, first-generation college students reviewing blueprints, interns shadowing Alicia through the estate's operations wing. Because when you give someone the tools to build, she said, they stop asking for permission to exist. The standing ovation was thunderous. Backstage, Zoe waited with her camera. That was incredible, she whispered as Alicia stepped off stage. Alicia smiled faintly. It's just the start. Her phone buzzed Carla again. We've received an invitation from the White House, Carla said, her voice almost breathless. They want you to lead a task force on anti-discrimination in private security. Alicia exhaled slowly. Tell them I'll call back after I finish lunch, she said, almost amused. Zoe giggled, holding up her camera. Can I get one shot for the mentorship archives? Only if you're in it too, Alicia replied. They stood together, the click of the shutter freezing the moment. Later, at the estate, Alicia walked the gardens alone. The bronze plaque glinted in the fading light. The gates were never theirs to guard. She touched the cool metal with her fingertips. Then her phone rang again, this time a number she didn't recognize. Ms. Monroe? A male voice said hesitantly. My name is Nathan. I used to work under Marcus Hale. I just wanted to say, I'm sorry, and I want to do better. Alicia's jaw tightened, but her voice was calm. Then apply for the internship program, she said. There was a pause. Would you even consider me after? I don't erase people for one mistake, Alicia interrupted. But you'll earn your way back. Understand? Yes, ma'am, Nathan said quickly. She ended the call and slipped the phone into her pocket. Somewhere beyond the gates, the world was still watching her every move. But for the first time, Alicia didn't feel the weight of it. She felt purpose. And that was heavier than any gate point. 2 months later, Alicia walked through the marbled halls of the West Wing. Secret Service agents nodded as she passed, their earpieces buzzing. Reporters scrambled to capture footage, shouting questions that bounced off the polished walls. Ms. Monroe, will you push for federal penalties for discriminatory security practices? Do you believe private contractors should lose their licenses over incidents like yours? Alicia didn't answer. Not yet. She entered the Roosevelt room, the weight of history pressing in from the portraits on the walls. Around the table sat cabinet members, senior advisors, and CEOs of the country's largest security firms. They rose when she entered. Ms. Monroe, the president said warmly, extending a hand. Thank you for accepting the appointment. We need your leadership. Alicia shook his hand, her gaze steady. We need systemic change, she corrected gently. They sat. The president nodded toward her. The floor is yours. Alicia stood, resting both hands lightly on the table. Here's the reality, she began. We have a culture that allows bias to hide behind the word protocol. My story is not unique. And unless we act, it will keep happening. She clicked a remote and the screen behind her lit up with footage from the estate gates. the viral video that had brought her here. The room was silent. This wasn't about one guard or one manager, Alicia continued. It was about a system that empowers people to gatekeep rather than serve. That ends now. She outlined the plan with precision. Mandatory bias training for all private security firms, federal oversight and penalties for discriminatory incidents, certification standards that prioritize diversity in leadership, a public database tracking companies with repeat violations. One executive shifted in his seat. With respect, Ms. Monroe, this will cost millions. Alicia cut him off. And bias has already cost lives, jobs, and trust. Which price do you prefer? The room was still again. The president leaned forward. What do you need from us? Support, Alicia said simply. Pass the legislation, enforce it, and show the country that access is a right, not a privilege granted by prejudice. Applause broke out, not the polite kind, but the kind born of conviction. After the meeting, Alicia stepped outside into the press briefing area. Cameras flashed like a storm. Ms. Monroe, do you have a statement? A reporter shouted. Alicia looked directly into the sea of lenses. Yes, she said. Her voice was calm, unshaken. The gates were never theirs to guard. And now we're making sure they never will be again. The clip would dominate every news cycle for the next 48 hours. Back at the estate that evening, Zoe watched the footage on her laptop, awe in her eyes. She's really changing the country, she whispered. Jermaine, the new head of security, nodded from the doorway. And it started right here, he said, glancing at the bronze plaque by the reflecting pool. For every girl told she's too loud, too brown, too bold, keep walking. The gates were never theirs to guard. Alicia stood in the distance, framed by the open gates. For the first time, she allowed herself a deep breath, knowing the fight was far from over. But the world had heard her, and this time it was listening. 6 months later, the U.S. Senate chamber erupted in applause. The motion carries, the vice president announced. By a vote of 72 to 28, the Security Accountability and Equity Act is hereby passed. Alicia Monroe sat in the gallery, hands folded, expression unreadable as the senators stood to shake hands. The bill she'd fought for, 6 months of hearings, negotiations, and sleepless nights, was now law. Reporters swarmed as she stepped into the Capitol rotunda. Ms. Monroe, this is being called the most sweeping reform of private security oversight in decades. How does it feel? Alicia met their cameras with steady eyes. It feels like the beginning, she said simply. She returned to the estate late that night, exhausted but resolute. Zoe and Jermaine were waiting at the gates. You did it, Zoe said softly, holding up her phone to show the news alerts. We did it, Alicia corrected. Inside, the staff had gathered in the atrium, clapping as she walked in. It wasn't performative. It was gratitude, the kind that doesn't require words. As the celebration ebbed, Alicia slipped into her office, the house finally quiet. She found a single envelope on her desk, no return address. Inside was a handwritten letter. Ms. Monroe, I don't expect forgiveness. But I do want you to know I've joined a local youth outreach program. I teach security certifications now, real training, real accountability. Every time I stand in front of those kids, I think about the day at your gates. I'm trying to be someone who opens doors instead of closing them. Marcus Hale. Alicia stared at the signature for a long moment. She remembered his face that day, arrogant, dismissive, certain. Now the ink on the page was tentative, the handwriting uneven. She reached for a pen and wrote 2 words at the bottom, keep going. Then she sealed the letter and dropped it in the outgoing mail. The next morning, she stood at the reflecting pool, gazing at the bronze plaque. Zoe approached quietly, camera slung over her shoulder. They're saying this law will affect millions of workers, Zoe said. It should, Alicia replied. But laws only do so much. Culture has to change too. Zoe looked up at her. Do you think it will? Alicia exhaled slowly. I think we're giving it a chance. She turned toward the gates. For the first time since the viral incident, She saw children walking with their parents along the perimeter, pointing at the crest, the plaque. Some waved shyly. Alicia waved back. That evening, she stood before the estate staff one more time. "This house doesn't just belong to me," she said. "It belongs to everyone who believes dignity isn't negotiable. Every guest, every worker, every neighbor." She let the silence settle, then added, "And if anyone ever tells you you don't belong here, you tell them this. The gates were never theirs to guard." The words carried through the room like a vow. Later, as the moonlight washed over the estate, Alicia walked the grounds alone. She paused at the gates, fingertips brushing the cold iron. They were wide open now, and for the first time, she didn't feel like she was guarding anything. She felt like she was finally home. A year after the Security Accountability and Equity Act passed, Alicia Monroe stood at the United Nations in New York. Flags from 193 countries lined the plaza outside the glass facade. Inside, the General Assembly buzzed with anticipation. Delegates whispered, cameras clicked, and news anchors spoke in hushed voices as Alicia approached the podium. She didn't need to be introduced. The viral video, the White House task force, and the sweeping reform had made her a household name. "Madam Monroe," the Secretary General said, gesturing for her to begin. "The floor is yours." Alicia adjusted the microphone. "Thank you," she said, voice calm, carrying. "I'm here because a simple truth doesn't change when borders do. Gatekeeping doesn't just lock people out of homes. It locks them out of opportunities, out of safety, out of hope." She paused, letting the translators catch up. "Over the last year, we've seen what's possible when accountability is not optional. But this isn't an American problem. It's a global one, and it demands a global response." The screens behind her lit up with images. A South African schoolgirl denied entry to her exam hall because of her hair. An elderly man in India turned away from a bank he'd used for decades. A refugee family at a European checkpoint, begging for recognition. "These are the gates we must dismantle," Alicia said, her voice hardening. "Because bias doesn't care what passport you hold. Neither should justice." Applause rippled through the chamber. She outlined her next initiative, a global access equity coalition, an alliance of governments, corporations, and NGOs committed to uprooting discriminatory practices worldwide. One delegate raised a concern. "With respect, Madam Monroe, international cooperation is slow, costly. What makes you think this will work?" Alicia leaned into the mic because the alternative is unacceptable, and because we've already proven change is possible. She clicked the remote, and the viral footage of her standing at her estate gates filled the screens again. Gasps echoed as the image shifted to Marcus Hale, now leading training for young recruits at a community center. "People can change," Alicia said. "Systems can change. But only if we choose to do the hard work, country by country, company by company. That choice starts here." The applause was louder this time, sustained. After the session, Alicia was approached by ambassadors from Kenya, Germany, and Brazil. "We want to join," they said almost in unison. In the quiet moments that followed, Zoe, now her full-time media director, found her in the delegates' lounge. "You're trending again," Zoe said, showing her phone. #OpenEveryGate. Millions of posts in less than an hour. Alicia allowed a small smile. "Good. But trending isn't enough. We need commitments, funding, real enforcement." "And you'll get it," Zoe said. "You've built something bigger than a hashtag now." That night, Alicia returned to her hotel overlooking the East River. The city lights shimmered through the floor-to-ceiling windows. She sat at the desk and opened her laptop, scrolling through the growing list of coalition members. 22 countries had already signed on. She closed the laptop and walked to the balcony. Somewhere far away, another young girl was being told she didn't belong. Alicia could almost hear it, could almost see the closed gate in front of her. "We're coming," Alicia whispered into the night. And for the first time, the world felt small enough to change. 6 months after launching the Global Access Equity Coalition, Alicia Monroe was back where it had all started, the estate gates. It was dusk, the same golden light spilling across the crest engraved in iron. But tonight, the gates were wide open. Children from the mentorship program ran along the drive, laughing as interns guided them toward the gardens. Alicia stood silently, hands clasped behind her back. "Ms. Monroe," she turned. A girl no older than 15 stood nervously at the edge of the drive. She was small, wiry, her backpack almost bigger than her. "Yes?" Alicia asked gently. The girl hesitated. "I saw your talk online, the one at the UN. I'm not supposed to be here, but I didn't know where else to go." Alicia knelt down so they were eye level. "What's your name?" "Riley," the girl whispered. "They kicked me out of school. Said I was a problem. Said I didn't belong there." Alicia felt something deep in her chest. An echo of herself at 16. Turned away from the hotel lobby. Told she didn't belong. "Who told you that?" Alicia asked. Riley's voice cracked. "Everyone. My principal, the teachers. Even my foster parents." Alicia took her hand. "Listen to me, Riley. They were wrong. You belong exactly where you decide to be. And you're safe here." Riley's lip trembled. "But I don't know what to do now." Alicia glanced toward the mansion, where Zoe was directing interns with cameras and notebooks. Jermaine and the new security team greeted guests with warm professionalism. The entire estate had become more than a home. It was a sanctuary. "You'll stay here for a while," Alicia said. "We'll figure it out together. No one will ever tell you you don't belong again." Riley nodded, tears streaking her cheeks. That night, Alicia sat at her desk with Riley asleep on the couch nearby. She opened her laptop and pulled up the coalition dashboard. 57 countries had signed on. Hundreds of corporations had adopted the standards. Lives were changing, but the work wasn't finished. She closed the laptop and looked at the girl curled up under a blanket. "This is why we keep going," she whispered. The next morning, Alicia invited Riley to walk the grounds with her. "See that plaque?" Alicia said, pointing to the reflecting pool. Riley read aloud. "For every girl told she's too loud, too brown, too bold, keep walking. The gates were never theirs to guard." "That's about you," Alicia said softly. "About all of us. When they tell you you don't belong, you walk through anyway. And one day, you'll be the one holding the keys." Riley smiled faintly for the first time. By nightfall, Alicia watched the estate glow from the balcony. She thought of the gates, the law, the coalition. She thought of Marcus Hale, who had written again to say he was now training other managers. She thought of Riley, fast asleep in the guest room upstairs. Alicia touched the bronze plaque one more time. The gates would never close again. Not here, not anywhere she could reach. And for the first time since that day she was turned away as a teenager, Alicia felt the world was ready to listen. 2 years later, Alicia Monroe walked through the bustling atrium of the Monroe Center for Equity and Innovation. It wasn't an estate anymore. It was a living, breathing campus. Classrooms, incubators, gardens, dormitories. All built on the land where she had once been turned away. "Ms. Monroe, the press is ready," Zoe called from across the atrium, camera crew trailing behind her. Alicia nodded, pausing to greet interns who waved shyly as she passed. Many were the first in their families to graduate high school. Others had come from foster care, shelters, or countries where opportunity was a luxury. At the far end of the atrium, a massive wall of photos displayed every graduate from the mentorship program. Above it, a simple inscription: "Belonging is built, not granted." Alicia approached the podium as reporters raised their microphones. "Ms. Monroe, the Monroe Center has expanded to 12 countries now. Did you ever think it would reach this scale?" Alicia allowed a small smile. "I thought we would go as far as we needed to," she said. "And the need is global." Another reporter asked, "How do you balance your role as CEO with leading this foundation?" "I don't balance it," Alicia said firmly. "I integrate it. Because the same values that build companies build communities. Profit without purpose isn't sustainable." Applause broke out from the students gathered behind her. After the press event, Alicia stepped outside. Riley, now 17, was waiting under the oak trees that lined the campus walkway. "You crushed it," Riley said. holding up her phone with the live stream still running. Alicia smiled. "You're supposed to be in class." "I'm ahead," Riley grinned. "Thanks to you." "Thanks to yourself," Alicia corrected. "You did the work." Riley hesitated, then said, "I got my acceptance letter. Columbia University." Alicia's chest swelled with quiet pride. "That's incredible. But remember, college isn't the only gate you'll walk through. There will be others. And you'll know how to handle them." Riley nodded, her expression determined. Later that evening, Alicia wandered the reflecting pool alone. The bronze plaque was still there, polished now by the hands of hundreds of students who had touched it for luck. She whispered the words as she traced them with her fingertips. The gates were never theirs to guard. Her phone buzzed. It was a message from Marcus Hale. "Marcus, we've certified 3,000 managers this year. The program is working. Thank you for giving me a second chance." Alicia smiled and typed back, "Keep going." As the sun dipped low, Zoe approached with a folder. "We just got an invitation from the African Union," she said. "They want you to help launch a continent-wide equity initiative." Alicia closed her eyes for a moment, feeling the weight and the possibility. "Tell them yes," she said, "and tell them we'll bring the students with us. They need to see how far the world can open." From the balcony above the atrium, Riley and her classmates watched Alicia walk back inside, surrounded by staff, students, and supporters. "She changed the world," Riley whispered. "Not by herself," Zoe said softly, "but she showed us how." And as the lights of the Monroe Center glowed against the night sky, Alicia knew this was the legacy she had fought for. Not just open gates, but open paths for everyone who came after. 5 years later, the Monroe Center was no longer just a campus. It was a movement. Satellite centers dotted the globe: Nairobi, Sao Paulo, Mumbai, Atlanta, Cape Town. Tens of thousands of students had graduated, many now leaders in government, corporations, and nonprofits. The logo, a stylized open gate, had become a universal symbol of access and opportunity. On a crisp spring morning, Alicia stood at the edge of the main plaza in New York, watching a sea of young faces fill the amphitheater. It was graduation day. "Ms. Monroe," Zoe said softly, stepping up beside her. "They're ready for you." Alicia nodded, walking to the podium as the crowd erupted into applause. She scanned the rows of students in their deep blue sashes, each marked with the Monroe Center crest. "I started this journey because I was told I didn't belong," Alicia said, her voice carrying through the plaza. "But today, I see thousands of people who know exactly where they belong, everywhere they choose to be." The students rose to their feet, clapping and cheering. In the front row, Riley, now 22, stood tall, cap in hand. She was graduating with honors and had already accepted a fellowship to lead a new Monroe Center in Ghana. After the ceremony, Riley approached Alicia with tears in her eyes. "I wouldn't be here without you," she said. Alicia shook her head. "You're here because you didn't let anyone close the gates on you, and now you'll keep them open for others." Riley smiled through the tears. "I will. I promise." That afternoon, Alicia walked through the reflecting pool garden one last time before heading to the airport. She was scheduled to speak at the African Union in Addis Ababa, where Riley would soon join her. She paused at the bronze plaque. It was weathered now, but the words were still sharp. "For every girl told she's too loud, too brown, too bold, keep walking. The gates were never theirs to guard." She traced the letters slowly, then stepped back. Behind her, a group of children from the newest mentorship class approached hesitantly. "Ms. Monroe," one boy asked, "will you always be here?" Alicia knelt so they could see her face. "I'll always be with you," she said, placing a hand over her heart. "But you're the ones who will keep this alive. You're the gatekeepers now." The children nodded solemnly. That evening, as Alicia's plane lifted into the sky, the Monroe Center Plaza glowed with thousands of tiny lights from the graduation celebration. Riley stood at the podium, now leading the crowd in a pledge to uphold the center's mission. And somewhere above the Atlantic, Alicia closed her eyes, knowing the legacy was no longer hers alone. The gates would stay open, forever.